With practice and qualifying in the books, Brian and I get you set for Martinsville. Who should be in your DraftKings lineup? Who should you avoid? We'll update the outright betting card, and as always, head to our Substack for the full card, all of our thoughts, and everything on today's Angle of Pursuit podcast.
Ross Chastain used the wall all the way around this racetrack.
Logano has been the class of the field.
Check out the big brain on grass.
Yeah, I need to change my underwear.
Brian Twining, practice done, qualifying done. Everything is set to go for the race on Sunday. As I mentioned, we'll run through everything. You were locked in to qualifying despite being in Vegas for the tournament.
Let me just update people on that. I actually stayed at the condo to watch the entirety of practice and the first group of qualifying before heading to the sports book. And then the first thing I did when I got to the Superbook was whip open my phone and watch the second round and the conclusion of qualifying, and almost missed out on getting any bets in for the Purdue NC State game. Yeah. I've been
locked in. I was a little like, is he at the Westgate and they have the audio on? Like, how are you so locked in? But
oh yeah, no, dude, I was.
Everything makes sense now. All right, so practice done, qualifying set. We have our drivers for Sunday's race. As I mentioned, we'll talk DraftKings pricing and all that good stuff. But Brian, despite Group A having a speed advantage, there's two drivers in Group B that we are lining up to bet, and are the pretty sizable co-favorites for Sunday's race. And that's Dennis Hamlin and Kyle Larson.
Yeah, I tweeted it out. Like, despite Group B being, I think it was something close to almost 5/10 off of what the Group A was in terms of just top overall speed in practice, Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin wound up atop the board in the super long run metrics during practice. So clearly these two guys are hooked up. Hopefully you jumped on that 9-1 number of Larson that we talked about, or as I did here in Vegas, found 11-1 prior to this. So as you'll see, as we talk after we get through DK, like him and Denny are 4.5, some places, and as low as 3.5. So yeah, if either of those two guys don't win, honestly, it's going to be a pretty big upset in my opinion.
Yeah. And as I mentioned, I'm probably going to have to bet the 11, and I hate myself for being on that, but it probably is the move. But we'll see what that looks like when we get there. Let's talk DraftKings. Obviously, as we go through this, we can talk qualifying, we can talk, just kind of track history and who we need to target and who we need to avoid and all that good stuff. So there's DraftKings. Dennis Hamlin is your most expensive driver at 11.5, Larson 11.2. I'll include the 10K guys because there's only 3. Truex starting 4th, Blaney starting 9th, and Christopher Bell starting 20th. Brian Twining, you mentioned Hamlin, Larson. Obviously when we talk betting, it's a different story. But in terms of DraftKings, it sure feels like even though he's a couple $100 more, it's worthwhile to try and get up to Hamlin, because not only are you going to get the potential ability to move forward, but he could be the best car for the majority of the day. Showed a ton of speed, was really good on the long run. And as you mentioned to me, and I'll let you share that with the people, the potential downside of starting on the front row here at Martinsville.
Yeah, I'll preface this by saying this probably doesn't affect it as much in DFS as it does at the betting window, but we haven't had a car from the front row win here at Martinsville since 2013. And so, when you're looking at outright numbers and stuff like that, it's going to be really hard for me, who loves looking at the data and trends, to get down on that shorter number on like a Larson or even my guy Bubba. If you could find the right number, I like it. Knowing that type of stuff. that being said, when you look at the pole position here, they're probably going to lead a shitload of laps because they're probably going to lead the first stage and just stay out front for the majority of the day with guys not trying to get into issues before, we get further into the race. And, when you look at the 4 next gen races here, I believe we've only had 1 caution for cause during the first stage of all 4 of these races. So, I mean, it's been fairly clean. And from what we saw with Larson, he's fast on the short run and he's fast on the long run. So, I love Denny Hamlin, but I think you might be in a position, whereas last week it kind of bit us in the ass, or bit me, where he didn't lead laps. He won the race, but at a track that is so short and we're getting a shit ton of laps, like you need a guy who's going to go out there and lead 150 to 200 laps. And I think that guy would actually be Larson.
Yeah, I mean, potentially. Last year at Martinsville, in Martinsville 2, I'm looking at the stats. I can pull up the spring numbers as well. But it was Blaney who led 145 laps, started 11th, finished first, 86 fastest laps. Hamlin was second, 107, started 4th, finished 3rd. So he didn't even really have to move forward. But he had fast laps and he led 156 laps. And then it was Almirola at 79, and then it was Elliott at 56. So there's a substantial drop off. So kind of like what we talked about last week at Richmond, it really feels like you need to hit the 1 or 2 guys that are going to really dominate this race and then kind of build in around there. So I might even, like, I hate to say it, but I might force us into a Larson Hamlin start in one of our lineups and see if we can build a lineup that we can actually be not like completely throwing up over.
Yeah, no, I am not opposed to that. The one thing I will say, going back here in the fall of 2022, Larson started on pole and only led like 68 laps here. But when you look at the other 3 races in the next gen car, the pole sitter led 180, 135, and then last fall, the pole sitter Martin Truex Jr. he only led 47. But I mean, Toyotas were kind of crap. Last year. So, I think that's interesting. You're hoping that Larson jumps out front, like I said, and then Denny maybe can get that later. And so I think both of those guys are great plays, especially looking at the odds.
And looking at Martinsville 1 from 2023, you'll never believe it. But you know who scored the most fantasy DraftKings points in Martinsville 1 last year? Chase Mother Briscoe. 88.2, led 109 laps, 51 fastest laps. Second most points was Kyle Larson, 83.1. Only led 30 laps, but had 28 fastest laps. Started 19th, finished first. So you either need to start in the mid or backpack Christopher Bell and get to the front and win, or you need to dominate laps. You need to have fast laps. Ryan Preece started on the pole, finished 15th, but led 135 laps and was only the 7th highest score with 59 points. So
that's actually pretty good for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like he was probably like in the mid 7 range.
That could be a Bubba Wallace story for tomorrow, but
yep.
So I obviously we both like Hamlin and Larson. Truex starting 4th, Blaney starting 9th, Bell starting 20th.
Let me add this quick little tidbit. The last time Christopher Bell started 20th at Martinsville, he won the race.
Betting him.
Yeah,
that makes me feel better. Now I don't have to bet Denny. I can just bet Bell and cry when he loses.
And for what it's worth, like during practice, Christopher Bell wasn't that far off of these guys. And, we've seen it before. A couple hundreds here, a couple thousands there. And, guy from the back can make up the ground.
And then in terms of total speed rankings from the 2024 low downforce packages, which is what we're running today, today for you guys, which is obviously Phoenix and Richmond. Truex was 1, second at Phoenix, first at Richmond. Bell was 2nd, 3rd, and 5th. Denny Hamlin was 3rd, 4th, and 6th. Larson was 4th with Tyler Reddick, despite going 13th at Phoenix and 3rd at Richmond. And then Reddick was the opposite, 1st at Phoenix, 15th at Richmond. So, interesting. And then it's Byron Keselowski, Chase Elliott, on and on and on. So interesting to look at all of those guys. Are you interested in Truex and or Blaney at their prices, knowing that Larson and Hamlin are right there? And you have so much more optimism for them, or is it really just let's skip those two, even as good as Truex has been in the low downforce package at the last couple of races? And then obviously we'll see what Blaney brings.
Yeah, so I liked Truex prior to practice and qualifying. If you watched the show earlier in the week, I took him into under 5.5 finishing position. So I still think that's definitely in play, but I just think that there's a lot more room for error with him, kind of seeing the way he can explode on himself like he did last week when things went awry. And then, when you have a guy like Christopher Bell who wasn't that much different from the top of the board starting 20th, why would I pay up for two guys starting inside the top 10 that I don't think are as strong as the guys in front of them, or they're on equal ground with Bell? So I don't hate Ryan Blaney. I'm a little bit more down on him than the majority of people are, I believe, this week. So, we'll see.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense. Let's talk 9K. Byron starting 18th makes a lot of sense. Great to pair with Kyle Larson. If you want to do the Hamlin Bell thing, I think that makes a lot of sense too. And then Logano starting 6th, Brad K starting 13th, Tyrone, he gets us Gibbs rounding out the rest of the 9K. So we only have 4 drivers in there. Mostly mid-pack options with Logano starting 6th. Do you have any interest in these 4 options, or for you, is this a range where you're like, maybe I should just kind of skip it, either spend up or spend down?
I love William Byron starting 18th, 9,800. He was really good on the long run in practice today. And, when the books first opened their outright numbers, we'll talk about this a little bit later. I almost had a heart attack because I got a great number on him. But yeah, I don't think Byron's qualifying effort is indicative of the type of car that he's brought here this weekend. And I think that all 4 of the HMS guys are clearly going to be good. And I think NASCAR had something to do with that, considering it's Hendrick Motorsports' 40th anniversary.
They're letting them slip a couple things by the goalie, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, hey, we already had Mr. Dennis the Menace calling out. I think it's Marcus Smith for SMI and the paving crap at Sonoma and having their late night Twitter beef. So who knows? Maybe we'll have another one post race if one of the HMS guy wins.
Be amazing. Byron was really good on 15 and 20 lap averages. He did fall off on 25 and 30, where Larson and Hamlin got much better. But yeah, I like Byron a lot. I think the rest of the guys are, I don't know, not quite.
I like Gibbs too.
Yeah,
like I think of the guys below Byron, I would rather save a little bit of money and take Gibbs starting 15th, and just, I mean, the expectation is Toyotas are great at these short tracks, and Gibbs, for what it's worth, should be good because we're not going to have the same type of tire wear that we saw at Bristol or any of that type of stuff. And I think his car has plenty of speed to probably make up ground and finish ahead of Brad Keselowski and compete possibly for a top 5.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. He's going to be a little more popular per this ownership that I'm looking at, but we'll see. Byron's actually not going to be very popular. And Logano is getting almost no ownership, so I could find myself getting to him. I know Chris Wormy was really excited about him and his potential, but I don't know. He was fine in practice. I don't know that he was obviously he was in Group B, so take that with a grain of salt. But it is hard when he's in the same as Hamlin and Larson and clearly not like maintaining anywhere near the same speed.
Yeah, I mean, he did have fairly limited fall off. So I mean, the longer you get into these runs, I mean, when you look at like stage 1, it's 80 laps or something. I think if we go that long without a caution, I think his car can definitely come to him. And so, yeah, I don't hate Logano. I think there's definitely maybe something to play with him in the betting market, but starting 6th, you're not going to get very much placement points, and then I don't think you're going to see very many fast laps out of him either.
Yeah, and I don't know. He feels like he's a better put his car in 3rd and kind of have it stick there and just kind of
be there at the end.
Yeah, not lead laps, not have any fastest laps, not really have a lot of movement. Like just in terms of DraftKings scoring, it's going to be hard to make it make sense unless you think he can get to the front early and probably win the race. Let's talk 8Ks where we have Chase Elliott starting 3rd, Christopher Buescher starting 30th, Tyler Reddick starting 19th, Ross Chastain starting 12th, and Kyle Busch, who's already making excuses and talking about all the crap that NASCAR's pulling, starting 11th. Interesting group of cars yet again. Anyone from this range jumping out for you?
Quite honestly, no. I think Buescher, but I don't think you can pay 8,600 for him. He's got a long way to go. I think
No.
there's probably a greater possibility he's battling in between like 15th and 25th all day than there is of him cracking the top 10. And then you just paid up for, 10, 15 placement points. You paid 8,600 for that for a guy who's going to score 45 points, which I'm not willing to do that. And then Reddick, Chastain, and Busch, a top 10 for any of these guys is going to be miraculous in my opinion. And so like Kyle Busch, he's going to fall like a rock again. Like that team is just in shambles right now.
Fade him in matchups. I will say if you like Keselowski and RFK in general, then Buescher's interesting. But like you said, Brian, there is a like higher than like a higher likelihood that he's kind of just like 15th to 18th.
Exactly.
Unless we get a phantom caution which flips the field and all of a sudden he finishes top 5 and he's one of the guys you need. Let's talk 7K. Alex Bowman, we talked about your love for Hendrick and expectations there, starting 10, 7,900. Bubba Wallace starting on the front row, 77. My boy Chase Briscoe, he's my boy. You can try and grab some shares where you can, Brian, but he will ultimately be in my corner. Josh Berry starting 7th. Ryan Preece starting 22nd at 7,200. And Gregson as we finish out the SHR quad. Starting 26 at 7,100. How many of all the SHR cars are we going to squeeze into at least one of our lineups? Because it feels like all of them.
I was just going to say, I would not hate just going and putting all of them in a lineup and then just seeing what we could do, because I think all of them are going to be good on the long run. I don't necessarily think outside of maybe Briscoe that the rest of the 3 can actually win the race. And then even Briscoe, like we've seen him be a doofus on multiple occasions. So, I still have doubt for him actually winning the race. But of this group, like Alex Bowman, I think is going to have a fine day. Again, going back to the Hendrick thing, he was top of the board early on in practice for, I believe it was 20 lap average until, of course, like Briscoe and Byron and all them started throwing
Briscoe
down.
went 9th after 10, 5th after 15, and 1st after 20. Yeah. And then he's like, we got it. The setup's nailed. We're ready.
Yeah. And, I did want to say, so one thing I kind of noticed too, when I was watching the live feed of the laps being ran during practice, there was a lot of instances where guys were fluctuating from throwing down like a clean lap that you could tell that they were putting down a lap that was clean without traffic. And then you'd see them fall off like 3 or 4 tenths, probably because somebody got in their way or somebody was on fresh tires. So they moved over. So some of these numbers might be slightly off, so we got to be careful to not just use the data wholly to look at this stuff. But I think Bowman's going to be fine. I think he's inside the top 10 all day, and kind of going to the guys that are just above him in Kyle Busch and Ross Chastain, you're saving salary for a guy that could move up as opposed to go down just based on what we've seen.
I like where your head's at. Let's talk the 6K. Daniel Suarez starting 21st. Austin Dillon completely changed his but he's a new crew chief.
He's got a new old crew chief, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the savior. That's the reason why RCR has been garbage, is because of his crew chief. Eric Jones, John Hunter Nemechek, Austin Cindric, Michael McDowell. What happened to Michael McDowell, man? We were doing so good with him.
I don't know.
Todd Gilliland and Richard Stenhouse Jr. If there's a range that's going to make you want to puke, this is probably it. Do you have interest in anybody?
Not really.
Yeah.
I think there's better value, possibly even lower.
Yeah. Like McDriver was awful.
Let me just say, if you can find matchups at the betting market with Austin Cindric, bet the other guy. Like you could almost guarantee he is not finishing at this spot or anywhere near it.
It worked out well. We can fade him again this week.
Yep.
Let's round out the rest of the field. Hocevar 25th, LaJoy 32nd, Zane Smith 24th, Justin Haley 27th, Harrison Burton 34th, Kaz Garala 31st, Daniel Hemrick 36th, Josh Williams 33rd, and David Starr in a 5K.
Harrison Burton will be in my 2 DFS lineups that I make. He will be the only guy that finds himself in both of them. So
yeah, Hemrick maybe, LaJoy maybe. I mean, it's pretty gross. So, but we're
yeah,
gonna
I
have
don't
to.
think LaJoy is going to be able to maintain.
We're gonna have to dip into this range if we want to build some lineups. So we'll have to figure it out. All right. So I promised the people I was gonna force us to do this. So for the first lineup, we're gonna get real gross. We're gonna go with the 2 guys who we think can absolutely dominate this
Yikes.
race, and that puts
Just
us
put
in
in
a really
Burton.
gross spot. So Justin Haley was a guy you liked, right?
No. Harrison Burton. Harrison Burton.
Oh.
Hey, it saves us a lot.
It does, and that gets us up into the 7Ks. Let's see here.
I will say too, if we wanted to do, because we're having the 2 highest priced guys in here, we got to dip down a little bit further. Somebody that piqued my interest during practice, not necessarily for overall speed, but for long run, was Ricky Stenhouse Jr. His speeds were not great, but when you look at his fall off numbers, he was losing like thousandths, not tenths, off of his 5 lap splits. So I mean, if he can keep it clean,
I'm good with it. All right, so we have to be at 7,900 and below. We could do Bowman, we could do Briscoe or Barry, young Noah Gragson. Gragson's kind of fun, 7,100, gets us some SHR stuff.
what about Briscoe? Because I could see a scenario where Briscoe, Larson, and Denny Hamlin all lead.
I was just trying to set you up
plus
so you
laps.
pushed me to my favorite driver, so that's fine. We don't like the 8, so yeah, and then we're back down to 7Ks because we don't want to do Chastain or Busch.
No.
We could do Bowman, we could do Barry, we could do Priest or Gragson.
Oh shit, we didn't even talk. I didn't even talk about Bubba Wallace. So
no,
Bubba's going to be fine. He was fast. He was really fast. He was third best in top 3 in every split during his practice session. And then he went out there and he lost the pole by 1/1000th of a second to Kyle Larson. And we saw him do this last week. He was fine until, of course, his pit crew absolutely sucks ass again, costs him a good finishing position. And so, you run the risk of something like that again. But obviously, if you're not doing Hamlin and Larson or Briscoe, I think he's going to be a fine pivot play. But yeah, I don't mind going 2 SHR guys here to close out this lineup.
Yeah.
And
I'm looking, like, honestly, like a lot of I'm looking at both Martinsville lineups, like starting kind of in the teens was good. Like Martinsville 2 especially, like the top 6 drivers were Blaney, Hamlin, Almirola, Elliott, Logano, Cindric, who started 11th, 4th, 12th, 14th, 15th, and 21st. Martinsville 1 was Briscoe, Larson, and Hamlin all found homes in our lineup. And then it was Blaney, Logano, Chastain as the next 3 guys, and they started 31st, 15th, 34th. So if we think there's a guy who can start, in the high 20s, low 30s, and can finish mid-pack, Noah Gragson, I'm looking at you. You can make sense. Or if you think, somebody can maintain, lead a bunch of laps and be really good. I think with the Briscoe and Larson and Hamlin stuff we're doing, I think we need to get to a driver that we think can move forward. So Bowman,
I also think while having those guys that can lead laps and stuff, the fact that we have 2 back markers who are just as likely to spin out as they are to actually finish the race, we probably need to play this last guy a little bit, I wouldn't say safer, but somebody we have confidence in actually finishing the race.
Okay, well then I think we just go Bowman and eat it.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, the only thing, yeah.
I mean, like Barry, I feel better about Bowman than I do about Barry. Plus, we get 3 spots. I mean, if you want to do Gregson and shoot for the moon, which I mean, we're doing a tournament
Hey,
lineup, so
let's do it.
all right, I like it.
That's wild.
And we
Okay,
got
let's
some-
make the SHR lineup.
okay. Let's go down. All right, so Gregson, Priest, Dawn, and Dawn. So we can do pretty much whatever we want. 10-4. So we could do. Ooh, I was gonna
You
say
want to
we
do
could do
Bell?
Hamlin and Bell, but I don't think we can. Let's put Bell in, and that puts us at Blaney or Byron
Or Logano?
or Logano. So we have Brisk. Like basically, what we could do Chase Elliott. I know it's gross, but I think we need someone who could lead laps early, and I guess Briscoe's that guy. Let's see here.
What about Gibbs? Or maybe this is the Byron lineup.
Yeah, I think Byron's interesting, but I think, yeah, do we just? I know we don't really love Blaney, but maybe he's the guy that makes this make sense. Especially
All
if we're
right.
trusting the SHR cars to be good, then the Fords will be fine. And I think just like how easy it was for us to skip over, and maybe we're
True.
a little lower than on Blaney than most people, but I'm just thinking he could be somebody who gets to the front early if his car is as good as it can be. And then
True.
it's really him and Briscoe and all these guys fighting. And then hopefully Bell gets there by stage 2, stage 3. And it's those guys fighting for a win. And then the other guys are all still being really competitive. Or if we want to do an even grosser version, we do Logano. But I think we're both simpatico on him being somebody who runs near the front but doesn't necessarily dominate or kind of wreck the race. So Blaney, Byron,
3 spots with Blaney. You know how we feel about Chase Elliott here, so
average ass, get out of here. All right, third and final lap. I mean, I guess I don't know. NASCAR. Okay, so we did the Larson Hamlin thing. We did the SHR thing. I don't think we've done Byron, so I'm gonna force him in.
and put him with
And
Logano.
then I'm gonna give you the T. We can go. We can do Larson if you want to do Larson Byron. We can do Hamlin Byron. We could not do either of those guys and just kind of do more of a balanced thing.
Let's go Denny.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the 7 spots from Larson probably make him a little bit more valuable because if he does get to the front, he's going to lead a shitload of laps too.
Bubba leads early.
I think that's a great call. I think Bubba could, if he can get in front of Kyle Larson and then just block for a while, after we get to like 40 laps or so, I think he could lead a decent amount of laps.
Yeah,
And at 7,700, I think that's totally worth it.
Larson will be content to hang out, knowing he has a really good car and he can push it when he needs to. He doesn't need to
Especially
let
early.
Bubba lead early, save tires, save whatever, and then push it at the important part. I like that. All right, so we have 7K left. We can do some more SHR stuff. I'm not opposed to that. We have a couple Toyotas and a Chevy. We could do the Burton thing again, although it feels really
That's
disgusting.
terrifying. Yeah.
But if we do the Burton thing, that it really doesn't give us that much more. I was thinking it might save us a little bit, and then we can really climb, but it doesn't seem like, well.
I'd probably almost go with Priest or Gregson.
4 spots and $100. Let's do it. Let me see.
Now we got to get really tricky here.
Pre.
We're gonna have to put one of the super cheap guys.
Yeah, I think we do Priest. I don't love it, but I think we do.
I mean, how bad can Daniel Hemrick be?
I think he's fine. Like, I think it's, and since we already did Burton and we know how sideways he can get easily. Let's do Hemrick. I don't feel good about it, but that's okay if it's making our lineups work and getting us 5 of 6 guys we love.
His fall off was pretty bad. It was pretty bad.
Okay, so let's do this instead. So Busher would be Hemrick. Busher, Reddick, Chet. We could do the Reddick and double 23-11 if we want to go up there. We could go do Bowman with Bowman and Byron. We could do some more SHR with either Briscoe or Barry or Gregson.
Well, I think the question on that would be, how exposed do you want to be to Chase Briscoe?
I mean, expose me all the way. I'm ready.
All right, put him in there, because we're in a scenario where there's probably going to be 3 guys that are the dominators here.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like at least last year, majority of the laps led or by 2 guys, and then the rest is kind of splitting up against a handful of names. And some years it's a little more of a tight pack, some years it's not. Unless you want to do the Busher thing. So if we do Busher, we're going to have to do Hemrick.
Oh, gosh.
If we do...
The thing about the Busher thing, though, is that
well, hold on.
You need like 20 placements. You need him to get a top 10 for that to pay off.
If we do the Briscoe thing, then we're looking at McDowell, Gilliland, Stenhouse, Hocevar. I mean, I think if we're going to get gross, I think we just get gross and say fuck
All
it.
Right.
I think the answer is either Busher or Reddick.
Man. Let's just do Busher because of the $100 and 11 spots. That's a big difference.
Yeah.
Because I think they're probably about the same in terms of potential tomorrow or today as you watch this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's our grossest lineup for sure. So that's surely to be the one that works the best. So Hamlin, Larson, Briscoe, Gregson, Stenhouse, Burton, Blaney, Bell, Briscoe, Barry, Priest, Gregson, Hamlin, Byron, Busher, Bubba Wallace, Ryan Priest, Daniel Hemrick. Those are our lineups if you're listening on X, or not X. If you're listening on Spotify. Or all that stuff. So let's talk outright odds, because that's what we're kind of hitting off the front. Right now, my card is Chase Briscoe top 4. That's plus 750. SHR over RFK minus 135. Briscoe over the average ass Chase Elliott at plus 130. Logano top 5 plus 190. Briscoe top 10 at plus 100. And Bell top Toyota at 375. Logano, Briscoe, and Bell Toyota were all tweeted out, as most of those markets weren't available. Brian has Reddick at 25, Larson at 9, which is Gibbs at 16. Wallace did Bubba beat Elliott. So there's a win for you. We'll add that to the card.
And let me just say, there was no way in hell I could have envisioned me sweating that out for the fucking pole. I did not envision either of those 2 guys competing for the fastest lap in qualifying.
No, but that worked out. Like you mentioned, the MTJ under 5.5 at plus 130 is nice. Basically a top 5, and I guarantee you that number, when it gets reposted, will be a lot shorter. Gregson over Briscoe, because you want to rub it in my face when that happens, and then Bell over Blaney, which I
added post.
Oh, okay. So we'll go over that in a minute. So we'll talk outrights. Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, plus 350 at Caesars. As Brian mentioned, you can get 4.5 maybe. Shop it if you are aiming at the top of the board. Brian, you mentioned the lack of winning from the front row. We have two guys priced extremely short. I said, You're going to make me bet Denny Hamlin this week, aren't you, prior to jumping on the pod. Is it Hamlin over Larson for you if you're at the top?
I think right now there is nobody in the sport I would rather be sweating an outright on than Denny Hamlin. If I had to bet one guy, give me Dennis the Menace right now.
There's one guy I don't want to be like rooting for on Sunday. We're talking with 10 to go. It's Dennis the Menace.
Yeah, but Wormy tweets it out all the time, and he did it again. Like, he's the most important guy in the sport right now. Like, whether you like him or not, just what he's doing on and off the track are the best thing that a driver has done for the sport since probably Dale Earnhardt Jr. when he started to branch out post his racing career and all that stuff. So, people can hate on him forever. Like, I'm enjoying it. I love it. And the fact that I'm sitting on over 2.5 wins for the season, I am extremely happy. And that I have him 10-1 on a championship. So yeah, give me all the Dennis Hamlin possible.
Yeah, I think I'm betting him and I hate it. I hate myself for doing it.
You can get him 475 at DK right now.
Oh.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the best number out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't
shop it when you're watching this Sunday morning because we'll see where the numbers have moved. But that's pretty incredible. So I'm adding that, and I hate myself. But it's not my only outright. And if he doesn't win and Bell can be top Toyota, then I'm fine there too. Let's talk the next range. Truex, Logano, and Blaney make up the guys between 5 and 10. Do you have any interest in going there, or is this a range where you're like probably rather spend up or spend down?
I think there's just so much value below those guys that, I mean, obviously if you're trying to spread out your units and just get exposure to as many guys as possible, I don't mind hitting them. But if you had to make one or two outright bets, I would probably go deeper into the board and then wait for maybe a live opportunity on one of them, say after a pit cycle or something of that nature. Because like a guy like Chase Briscoe, for instance, he didn't run 25 or 30 laps during practice. So we didn't get to see those numbers, but he was number 1 in 20. So who knows if he would have stayed on track, maybe he's the guy he's the 8-1 number. And then, Christopher Bell popping off at 14-1. Like, when the hell do you see that in this current state of NASCAR? Yeah. I would much rather bet those than hit Logano or Blaney, in my opinion.
Truex is the only one that's interesting to me at 7. We've seen how good he's been, but maybe Martin wins at Martinsville and makes up for last week at Richmond. But yeah, let's talk the double digits because that's where things get interesting. Byron at 12, Briscoe at 12, Elliott at 12, Christopher Bell at 14. I'm tempted to add that to my card given I'm already have him for top Toyota. It's a decent number. I'm not sure in terms of market if there's anything better floating around, at least as of yet. What's DraftKings at?
For Bell?
Christopher Bell, yeah.
He's 13 there, so 14 is a good number.
Yeah, 14 feels good.
It's not as good as what I got it at.
Well, some of us can't be as good as you. It's fine.
Yeah, just to let people know, as I was sitting there at the sportsbook watching the beginning of the Purdue NC State game, I was waiting for lines to be reposted, and Superbook gave me a wonderful gift of Christopher Bell at 18-1 and William Byron at 20, which were both hammered by yours truly.
Not sure what that's like, but it's got to feel good. got to feel
Oh,
good.
it feels great.
For reference, Bell and Byron are both now 14 at Superbook. They do have Bubba at 25, which I think is interesting.
He's 28 at Caesars. He's the guy I mentioned to you before we started recording. I don't understand why that number is so long.
Yeah, they don't trust him.
Which, how the hell is Bubba Wallace posted at 28-1 when he almost put it on pole? He was the third fastest in 20 lap average in practice, and I believe he was the fourth fastest in 25 and sixth fastest in 30. And a guy like Ross Chastain is ahead of him at 18-1, and he was nowhere to be seen in the lap averages. Like, it doesn't make any sense that they're discounting what Bubba can do on track when he unloads fast.
Is Bell? If we're betting Bell in real life, because obviously for this show I can't live bet onto our cards.
True.
But should we wait for the race to start? Hope it goes around a few times, and he's sitting like mid-20s, and maybe we get 16.
I don't think that's happening.
No,
I think it's going to be fairly quick that he makes his way through the field because he was fast in practice.
Welcome to the betting card, Chris Bell.
And I can almost guarantee you, tomorrow when we watch the pre-race poll, you already know the Wormser is going to be.
Is he ringing the bell?
I don't think he's going to pick him to win, but
No.
I mean, the fact that the number is above double digits, you can't not bet that, in my opinion.
Is he 14?
Because didn't he open at like 8?
Yeah, he was,
or 8.5 or something.
I think it was like 9. I think it was between 8 and 9, depending on where you looked. Because I got him at plus 375 for top Toyota, and I don't think those lines have come up yet. But I guarantee you, he's not. He's going to be a little bit longer than that.
Yeah.
Especially with what Hamlin did. So Chris Bell at 14 and Dennis Hamlin at 475 are my only two outrights. Are you going to add anyone else? Josh Berry, Ryan Preece, Chase Briscoe?
I'm contemplating the Briscoe number because I don't have any exposure to him. Although I did just bet Briscoe over Chase Elliott at Caesars for even money. I mean,
I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I just don't trust him. That's the problem. Is like I just don't trust that he's going to be able to compete up front with guys like Larson, Denny. And then we haven't really even talked about him. I know you mentioned him real quick, but Martin Truex Jr. after what happened last week, like I think there's a distinct possibility that he doesn't take any prisoners at the end of the race this week, and he's the one moving everybody out of the way to get the race win and just not caring.
Yeah, I think betting JGR to win the race. I don't know what the odds are going to be, but I think that could be a nice bet because I like Truex. I like Logano, or not Logano. I don't like Logano. I like Hamlin, Truex, and Bell.
Yeah, and I also think that so like the winning manufacturer market has been adjusted pretty dramatically. Caesars has it open where like Toyota was the pretty big favorite. I think they were close to even money. They're now floated out to like plus 170. So I think you'd be wise to take a little snippet of that because you get Denny, Truex, Bell.
Make it make sense. Larson.
I think it's because go ahead.
Larson and Hamlin are both extreme favorites, and yet Ford is because of like Ryan Blaney and the SHR.
Yeah, I think that's just because Blaney came into the week as like the public favorite. I think you could probably say based on what he did last year, and then Chase Briscoe, obviously, and then Josh Berry's been the darling of everybody. But yeah, I think that's a miscorrection, and I still think Toyota should be the favorite here, because when you look at Chevy, outside of the Hendrick garage, who driving a Chevy do you think could even get up inside the top 5?
Yeah, I think the way to play is you bet Toyota to win, and then you
Hendrick.
find Hendrick to win.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's the move, because you're probably getting like 3-1 on that, or maybe 250 even. You're getting a better number.
Yeah,
and if we don't
exactly.
think anyone outside of Hendrick is winning, then just bet it and get the better number.
Yeah, I don't see anybody outside of Hendrick in the Chevy camp even cracking the top 5.
I think that makes sense, Brian Twining. So as of now, your only outrights are pre-qualifying Reddick, Larson, Gibbs. Not going to add anybody else.
No, I am going to add your buddy.
I would be so happy if Chase Briscoe wins on your card. That would make me smile. He's not going to be on mine. He's on mine, but not as an outright.
I would probably cry. But
The
yeah,
only outrights I have.
I'm going to add him for 14-1 at Superbook.
Yeah. Hamlin and Bell are on my outright card, 475 and 14-1. We're going to go right up our newsletter, aoppodcast.substack.com, where you can get the full betting card. You can get links to both episodes. You can get our favorite, like we each write up like about 2 to 3 bets,
DK guys,
and then 3 DK guys each. So 6 DK guys, 4 to 6 bets, full betting card, some other nuggets if we have cool stuff to throw in there. Completely free, helps us out, does cost you nothing, gets in your inbox on Sunday morning if you're subscribed. So I highly recommend doing that. Make sure you subscribe to this so it gets in your inbox right away. Also hit the bell notification so when we post late Saturday night, early Sunday morning, you can check that out as soon as you get up. For the full betting card, go check that out. Make sure you're in our GridRivals contest. We're having a lot of fun over there. I'm making some noise. I got to get my lineup set for tomorrow. I'm very excited to see how that goes together.
I got to get my act together because the last 2 races have been atrocious.
I'm making moves. I'm almost cracking the top 15. I got to get, maybe if I get to the top 10 this week, I'll be feeling pretty good because we have a long way to go. And if you haven't joined yet, you can join. You get the lowest score, and then obviously you can work your way up. And if you win the whole damn thing, you get a $100 gift card to Fanatics or Home Field if you want.
And it's free to enter again.
And it's free. It's all free. It doesn't cost you a dime. So free Substack, free YouTube, free GridRivals. Join, subscribe, all those things cost you $0. Does a lot to help us. We are so close to 1,000 subs. I never thought we would be this close, and here we are. Maybe even before the All-Star break. That would be insane if we do. If we get there before All-Star weekend, Brian and I will we'll figure something out. So if you've yet to do that, hit subscribe. If you know somebody who likes NASCAR stuff, tell them to hit subscribe. Leave comments. If you have questions about bets, if you have questions about DraftKings, if you have favorite pit drivers that you want us to consider that maybe we skipped over a little too easily, always down. Brian and I will try and loop back between when you're seeing this and the race. Check out the the pre-race poll hosted by Chris Wormy of Stay Green on Sunday morning. It's always a nice little pre-race, pre-show to get set, finish up bets. There's really smart conversation in the chat, all that good stuff. That's Brian Twining. I'm Kyle Robert. Thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.